Hello, welcome to Business Live. In the last few hours, US sanctions on Iran have come back into force. They're being reimposed because President Trump pulled out of an international deal designed to stop Iran developing nuclear weapons. Now, for many Western companies, President Trump's decision means they have to choose whether they would rather trade with Iran or the United States, which of course is the world's biggest economy. Now, US companies have far less to lose than their European rivals. US trade with Iran was just under $200 million last year, but for the EU it was more around $24 billion as it continued to grow after the 2015 nuclear deal. Well, today marks the first of two phases of the sanctions coming back into effect, and they impact the car industry and currency transactions as well as trade in gold and precious metals. There'll be significant restrictions on exchanges of the US dollar and the Iranian rial. As investors have fled the Iranian rial, it's become more and more expensive to buy a single US dollar. It now costs about 2.5 times as much as a year ago. Now, some of the big European companies reassessing ties to Iran include French oil giant Total, car maker Renault, plane maker Airbus and German engineering firm Siemens. Now, the EU put in place a blocking statute to try and protect them, but it's unclear now how effective that will be.
Okay, thanks, Vishala. Well, Amir Paivar is the business correspondent for BBC Persian. Amir, thanks very much for joining us. We'll focus on the European aspect in a moment, but first of all, we've seen the impact these sanctions have had before they come in. Now they're there. Is it going to make any discernible further difference, do you think? I mean, the unrest, the discomfort, it's all there.
What we've seen so far, it was in anticipation of these sanctions. They will take effect today, and we will have practical, real impact of them hitting the Iranian economy. Forget about the currency, which has lost half of its value already, which is very, very important because it has triggered hyperinflation and will probably also translate into recession. But for example, the car industry we talked about right now is the second largest employer in the Iranian economy after oil and gas, and has the second largest share of the Iranian GDP. The entire car industry will be under sanctions. Iran won't be able to import parts, Iran won't be able to finance projects, and so on and so forth. The same with buying aircrafts, which Iran desperately needs. Put an order for 200 of them, only received 16 in this small window after the nuclear deal and today. So the real impact of these sanctions will be severe to Iranian economy, yet nothing compared to the second batch of sanctions that will come back.
Because that's going to get into oil and the real big,
exactly.
the big business, if you like. Let's just focus for a moment, though, on these EU companies. And they are also big beasts, aren't they? They're giants. They're pulling out, or they've pulled out already. So this blocking mechanism that the EU has brought forward, it's done it before, that doesn't even apply to them, is that right? Because they've already made the move to get out.
Well, exactly. Those who've already left will not be subject to the so-called blocking statute, which prevents European companies from following US sanctions. Those blocking statute will protect small companies that don't have exposure to US market, have made up their mind that they want to stay in Iran because the small business they have in Iran is profitable to them, and they needed this kind of protection from European countries saying, well, if you stay and if you're subject to any damages by the US Treasury, we will support you.
Right, which is good for the small companies, you can understand that, but this is hardly even crumbs off the table, is it, in terms of real economic value or impact?
Exactly. What Iran's oil industry needs are the kinds of Total or ENI of Italy. What Iran's industry needs is the technology Siemens brought to Iran. That is the kind of technology or know-how Iranian industry needs desperately, and those are the companies that have great exposure to US market and had to leave.
Very briefly, because we're a bit short on time, but also, interestingly, the people who take the rap for this within Iran, Americans or government?
Well, you know, from the ordinary Iranian point of view, It is a combination of both these sanctions that are hitting the economy, but also mismanagement internally. So people blame it both, of course, on US politicians, but also on their own. At the end of the day, it is the ordinary people who are being victim of this war between the two sides, because it is their finances which is shrinking by the day.
Always comes down to the ordinary people, doesn't it? Amir, thank you very much indeed for that. Thank you.